I am Bobby Dietz, and this is a book review on The One Thing by Gary Keller and Papasan. This book, man, is really good. The first things you see when you open the book is a Russian proverb. It says, "If you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one." And that, it sets the tone, and they knew to put that as the first thing in the book, man. It sets the tone for everything. This book reminded me a lot of another book I've reviewed. Or have I reviewed Essentialism? I don't know if I have. I'll have to do that. Really great book called Essentialism. And it's kind of about the same thing, but The One Thing is more specific. And I tend to like books that are very specific and give reasons why something is true. This is a really good example of that. You know, one of my favorite things to hear about is how to get things done and strategies to deploy over long periods of time. But also what to do on a day-to-day basis, and this has a lot to do with that, man. It's not all analogy either. There's some great analogies in here, but there's some actual good examples and comparisons as well. One of the things I liked that they said in the book is that success is sequential. And here's the quote: "The key is over time, success is built sequentially. It's one thing at a time." And this book helps you focus on the one thing that you're best at. So he has a way of phrasing it so that everything else is easier or not important. He's talking about in this book that there is most definitely one item in your life or one thing to do in your life that is more important than everything else. And if you get that one thing done, everything else will become easier or less important because of that one thing. If you need your business to grow and you have so much to do, what is the one thing, if you're a new startup business owner, what is the one thing that you can do to make everything else easier? Is it signing more clients, or is it getting a CRM finally built or done, or signing up for a software that tracks everything, or whatever that one thing might do? Is it building more widgets or getting your ads up on Google and focusing on getting ROI up, improving ROAS? What is the one thing that you can do? More creatives. If one of those things can make everything else easier, his idea in this book is to focus just on that one thing. Talking about this book with my business partner and about checklists, I just randomly happened to bring that up, because it naturally goes hand in hand, though. I mean, if you're talking about focusing on one thing, there's, I've read the checklist manifesto, and, there is a lot to be said for checklists, but in this book, he's talking about how checklists are more important for making yourself feel like you're doing a lot and not necessarily doing a lot that matters. If you could just focus, like it talks about a lot in the other book I referenced, Essentialism, and I'll review that. If you could just focus on one thing, you're gonna get so much more done. And if you're focusing on the right thing, everything else will become secondary. But his idea and his strategy in this book suggests a lot of collateral damage because you're not checking everything off of your checklist. You're only focusing on the one thing that's most important. Yes, you're accomplishing other things, but he encourages a lot of collateral damage, really, like things not getting done and being okay sitting in that chaos, because in your heart you're focusing on the one thing that matters the most. And if you can just get the one thing done no matter what, everything else will become easier and secondary. So he's really against checklists. He's much more about making sure that your one thing is done the best you can. So one of the sections I have start out in the book is passion for something leads to disproportionate time practicing or working at it. The time spent eventually translates to skill. And when skill improves, results improve. Better results generally lead to more enjoyment and more passion, and more time is invested. It can be a virtuous cycle all the way to extraordinary results. And that's a great thing for a young professional like myself, who's still earlier in my career, trying to realize that there's always new things we're trying and avenues we're exploring. And when you're not necessarily great at something right when you start it, all you need is a little bit of momentum, a little bit of small wins to get you down the path towards encouragement and success. That's what happened when we started our agency, our digital marketing agency. We took on some clients that were a lot smaller than we wanted to, but success is sequential, and now we're taking on much bigger clients than we imagined we would be in 6 months. So it's really, for us, been a good thing to reflect on and say, okay, if we can just stay focused on this sequential success and knocking over bigger and bigger dominoes each time, you won't be able to stop the dominoes from falling. And this book's really good at making it okay to have something that you care most about, not making excuses for the fact that other things are falling by the wayside, but it's because I am focused on having this one certain thing be everything to me, and I am not going to let I'm not going to let anything get in the way of making sure that this one thing is done to the best of my ability. And if I can happen to get other things done, fantastic. If I can't, sorry, it's not going to work out. The Ultimate Sales Machine is another book that I need to review, and it references some of this stuff too, and order, and it's a very specific actions-oriented book, but it references that as well. This is a common idea, but this, I think personally, this book does probably the best job of articulating why it's so important to focus on, and to focus on the most important one thing in your life. And they give some great examples of how it applies in real world. So check out The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Very, very good. I'm going to look for some other books if they've ever written any others. My name's Bobby Dietz. Thanks for listening to this book review. We'll see you in the next one.